Hey guys, I have a real surprise for you today on this really hazy, misty, humid morning. I'm in an incredible garden with my friend Roger here. And no, we did not color coordinate intentionally both our shirts with the garden furnishings, but it's kind of a fun,
it works.
it's kind of a fun happenstance. But what I want to talk to you about today are two of my favorite garden principles and how my friend Roger kind of put those into practice here in this client's garden. So those two are using flowering shrubs as kind of a blooming ground cover. It's a great low maintenance idea that's equally as beautiful as a whole bed of annuals or perennials, I think. And then also planting things that really will bloom and be at their best when the client uses their gardens. And this client is a true gardener. She really knows her stuff. She interacts with the garden on a daily basis. So tell me a little bit about how you put this bed together and what your design objectives were.
Well, what you brought up about designing the garden for when it's used is really important here, because our clients really enjoy the garden in the spring and the fall. So the Encore Azaleas were a great choice for that, because they bloom in the spring and then rebloom in the fall. And you know, summers are pretty unbearable in Oklahoma, and most gardeners.
And in lots of the South. So I think that's really a good point. I know in my own garden, you and I talk about this all of the time. I do all of my color punch in the spring and in the fall. And so I think that's a really good point for gardeners, especially now, as it's not only hot in the summer, but it's really dry.
Yes, it really is. So my goal in the summer with my garden is just keeping it alive, you know, from the spring bloom to the fall bloom.
That would be true with all of our gardens. So with that, let's just keep it alive.
That's the period.
Kind of design objective. What else did you do in here?
Well, we've got, it's a very informal design, as you can see. There are no straight lines. It is a pretty woodsy setting. And we designed for, of course, the seasons, but also for all 4 seasons. We've got deciduous elements. We've got elements that will appear and disappear during the winter.
And some evergreens with this gorgeous magnolia here.
Well, we've got the magnolia, we've got the hollies in the backdrop, we've got yews, we've got the soft caress mahonia, there's some spreading yews in other parts of the bed, the cast iron plant, a lot of evergreen structure in the winter. Including
even the azaleas, because they should hold on to their foliage.
Back here in this protected area.
So I'm all about texture, even more than color, in my own garden, and I know you kind of are too. So describe a little bit to me about your textural contrasts and things.
We've got a lot of
exceptional.
We've got a lot of texture going on here. We start with the big, bold, shiny leaf, dark green leaf of the magnolia, and we're playing with shades of green as well as textures. And the extremes are kind of that dark, bold leaf of the magnolia down to the very fine, feathery, soft caress mahonia.
And this will bloom in late winter too.
It does bloom in yellow, which is not our client's favorite color, but she'll make an exception.
She'll make an exception because it's so pretty. Okay, talk to me a little bit about the magnolia. What variety is that?
We're not really sure. I think that came up from a seed.
You're kidding.
And we moved it here years ago, obviously, but we've got such good soil here. It's really taken off. It's just found its perfect space.
It's really
so
happy.
It really is thriving.
And what's that growing underneath?
We've got it's a dwarf variety of a cast iron plant, Aspidistra, and it'll be evergreen, and it just forms a nice clump of, you know, of kind of spiky leaves.
And boy, it looks gorgeous against that.
And again, it's another shade of green.
Yeah,
you know,
another shade and another
green.
Texture against that finely cut foliage of the mahonia. So you've got some other perennials in here. What do you got going on?
Well, we've got the autumn anemone that'll bloom in the fall. It's getting ready to bloom. It'll bloom white.
Is that an Honorine Chaubert?
It is, yes. Good call. We've got, in the spring, we'll have white blooms from the dwarf white columbine.
So it's mostly white.
It is, yeah. This is mostly white, which is, we normally do lots of color in this garden, mostly pastels, but back here This is kind of a dark area, shady area, and we thought the white would be kind of a nice way to kind of brighten this up back here.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about white is sometimes it can carry a distance. So if you look more towards the back of the house, they can be standing on their back porch and look through here.
Right.
And I think some of that light will kind of peek through, which is a beautiful effect and a really good reason, I think, also to plant lots of white. Now, you and I both know that azaleas don't necessarily, like most other plants, like to grow in our heavy clay soil and on our really hot and dry conditions.
Right.
And along with this magnolia, they will thrive now that you've got them planted. First of all, what varieties did you tell me you planted?
Well, we've got, it's autumn lily, autumn moonlight, and autumn ivory. Yes, autumn ivory.
And they'll kind of grow in a staggered height fashion.
Right, we've got some, this is kind of the back side of this bed, so we've got some of the larger varieties in the back and shorter varieties in the front. We really want to let things kind of grow loosely. We're not going to keep anything trimmed back here.
Well, that's good because this stuff, none of this stuff really needs to be
and
trimmed.
it doesn't look good when it's trimmed either.
Yeah, no, I agree, because again, it's a shady aspect, a shady context, and you really want it to look very natural. Okay, but back to the trials and tribulations of trying to grow things in hard clay soil, but especially acid lovers. Now, obviously, you've done something to this flower bed in terms of soil prep. First of all, it's a raised bed.
It's a raised bed.
So excellent drainage.
And we add the perfect soil here to start with.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that over in an area where I understand, I think you're going to plant a camellia.
Right.
It's kind of a specimen plant on the other end. So let's talk a little bit about your bed prep over there and what will really ensure success of all of these plants. Oh my gosh, Roger. I wish that all of my garden soil was like this.
Oh, me too.
This is what you call garden perfection. This is the essence of really good, dark, loamy, chocolate cake kind of soil that's got great friability. And tell me how you worked your magic.
I mean, any plant would want to grow in this.
What did you do?
Well, you know, of course, we've got a raised bed, so that gives us the ability to put whatever soil we want in here.
Right.
And so, of course, we started with a really good, rich, organic compost, a good organic soil mix, some peat moss added initially. We usually use an alfalfa-based organic fertilizer as well. So that was back when this bed was established, I think about 10 years ago. Of course, over time, the soil settles, so we occasionally come back in and top dress it.
Now, it looks also, excuse me for interrupting, but it looks also like there's some kind of, did you mix in some pine bark mulch or something like that?
Before we did this planting, we came in and added about 2 to 3 inches of a mixture, just a 1-to-1 mixture of peat moss, pine bark, and organic compost.
Really good stuff to kind of acidify the soil for the azaleas, for the fern. Obviously, the magnolia is very happy. I think this design is going to be absolutely fabulous. Roger, can we come back and do an update on this when everything is in bloom? When do you think it'll be?
Probably another week or two. We should be in full bloom. The honorine Joubert anemones should be blooming, and all the azaleas should be pretty much in full bloom at that point too. We've got a lot of buds waiting to pop.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll have the camellia in place too.
Okay, well, it'll be a surprise. So check back with us, guys, and we'll see what this looks like when the whole plan comes together.